think it can be healthy, as hard as it is. I think it can be healthy to take breaks from the LSAT.
Welcome back to the 7Sage LSAT podcast. I am your trusty host, Bailey, and I'm joined today with one of our newer hosts or guests on the podcast. Introduce yourself. How's it going?
Hi, Hi, I'm ZeSean. I'm here as well today. I tutor the LSAT. I teach live class. Those kind of things. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So we wanted to talk to you guys today a little bit about timing and also about just kind of like how you might be approaching your studying in different ways. I definitely was listening to a lot of podcasts or like scrolling on TikTok, trying to get some LSAT studying just in the back of my head. And I don't know if it was always the most effective. Of course, you're listening to a podcast right now and we're going to try to make effective for your learning, but yeah, just lots to discuss today. I want to start off with some timing discussions. I don't know. What do you like? We were talking about people coming to live class a lot and they're asking about timing. What are people asking you?
Yeah, I think a question I get a lot in both one-on-one tutoring and in live classes, this concept maybe makes sense now, but I struggle so much on timing. I feel like I'm wasting a lot of time and I feel like I'm running out of time on sections. And so there's general timing anxiety. And Bailey, I think I've heard you talk about this before, and you said it really well. I'm going to let you start, but I'll maybe add on. What would you say to those questions when you get that question? Yeah.
Yeah, my first question to that is always like, okay, I feel you. I was there for the longest time. But how are you doing untimed? Because I feel like timing was my biggest problem on the LSAT forever. Turns out I wasn't actually where I wanted to be at, like understanding wise, accuracy wise, confidence wise, when I thought that timing was my biggest problem. So now my first question is just like, where are you at untimed? And how do we get you to that higher level of understanding untimed first? So then we can taper it down to regular timing conditions.
100%. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to focus on understanding the concepts, understanding how to do a question, and whether it takes you a minute or it takes you an hour, but just starting with a question you're struggling on and learning the approach is super important. You can learn to get faster later. It makes no sense to start off trying to be fast and then learn the concept later. That part you can't do it that way. That would just make no sense. So it's crucial that you know what you're doing, how to approach a question, and then you can refine your speed approach later. I guess what I mean by that is like, first of all, just by understanding what you're doing, you will naturally get faster. If you know what you're doing, the process will be smooth. And if it feels smooth, then you're probably doing it in a reasonable amount of time. The second thing is like, then at the end of your studying, you can start exploring timing strategies for a section. Like, for example, putting parallel reasoning questions off till the end.
That's what I do.
Right?
That's
because
my favorite
they
one.
do take a lot of time. So don't do them first. Don't waste a lot of time. Go through the other questions smoothly, aka fast, but not rushing. And then save stuff for the end. Maybe that's the last thing I'll say before I let you go, is rushing is bad, right? Like if you feel like you're trying to answer a question fast, then you're probably in the wrong headspace. You instead actually want to be slowing down and taking it in like, very critically and having a very active reading eye. So go slow, be very focused, and that will pay off in speed in the long run. I don't know if any of that made sense. But
No, it
I
all
just
makes
rambled
sense.
for like 20 minutes.
No,
Yeah.
it makes total sense because it's funny because you say all these things very similarly to how I say it. And that was like one of the biggest lessons I had to learn for myself when I was studying was slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. It feels so counterintuitive. Like it feels like every grain in you. Is that even like the phrase? Every grain in you.
Yeah,
all of your grains
we're full of grains.
Really, yeah, they're really trying to just go as fast as possible. Like I need to skim read. I don't have time to, do all of this extra crap. Or like, oh, I need to just fly through those answer choices. I shouldn't even read all those answer choices. Like, no. We really need to slow down. We need to figure out how to like follow the steps to get to the right answers. And then you just want to do that so many times and untimed or like maybe, slightly time practice until it's just muscle memory. Like you can't not follow those steps that you need to get to the right answer because they're just built into you. And then the slow is smooth, smooth is fast will really come into play. I didn't believe that for the longest time. I had to learn it the hard way. I don't want anybody else to have to learn it the hard way in the sense that I did, because it was a year and a half. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's only natural to see the clock ticking and be like, whoa, I have to distribute this time evenly among all these questions. So I need to rush through them. And the problem is, every question is worth the same amount of points. They're all worth 1 point. So spend your time on the stuff you're going to get right, and don't waste your time on the stuff that might trip you up and you might have gotten wrong anyway. You can sink 5 minutes into a question that you end up getting wrong. That's a whole 5 minutes wasted. You could have spent 0 seconds just guessing and moving on.
Literally, yes. Yeah, we always say, like, if you're going to be wrong fast. Be right fast. But like, if you're going to be right, you could have invested a little bit more time in it.
Right.
But if you're going to be wrong fast. And I know that's probably hard because you're like, well, I don't want to be wrong. But it's like, you're learning. Choose, maybe it's a question type that that you're just not quite as good at. And like, first of all, you might want to just save those till the end, spend your time elsewhere. Guess on them or do your best with the amount of time that you have left. And then you can kind of change that process up as you go. But, shoot, I forgot what else I was going to say. What were you going to say?
Well, you reminded me of, like, you can do the math on this. You can break 170 and not finish a section, not finish every section, right? You can leave some questions, run out of time.
If you're focusing on your time on the questions you're getting right, exactly. Because a 170 should be like, well, it depends, but like I've seen like curves where it's -7 to like -10 over the course of the entire test. And so like a couple questions a section, if you just save like for me, I'm always saving those parallel reasoning to the end. And then like worst case scenario, I run out of time for it. I get it wrong. Right. It's okay. Who cares? Like that's just, it's all good. Still going to get my 170 plus.
100%. Yeah. I think that's maybe the main lesson around timing is just maximize the stuff you can get right. Spend as much time as you need. You will naturally get faster as you get better at the test. And then if you want to talk timing strategy, we can talk timing strategy, such as skipping questions, whatever, pacing yourself. One tip I liked was like, try to blitz through the first 10 questions pretty fast because those are easy and you shouldn't overthink them, and then spend your time on the last 15 or so. But we could talk timing strategy all day, but that's not what's important. What's important is I have the robust understanding of the LR questions to actually answer them right. So anyway, I think we're on the same page.
This is good. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it back to that too. Yeah. What were you going to say? Sorry.
I was like, I don't know. I was like expecting a debate or something. It's like,
no. We think all the same things.
We're agreeing. Yeah.
What was I going to say? Shoot. Oh, no. I'm glad that you brought it back to the thing about like making sure that you are actually distributing your time a little bit differently. Because I also had that misconception going into my studying that I was just trying to do equal amount of time for each question. So I think that's like a minute and a half, a little bit over a minute and a half for each of the LR questions. If it's 35, right? 35 minutes, 26 questions. Yeah. So I was trying to do an equal amount of time for each question. And I was forgetting that like, even that should be an average. Even if I'm thinking about like a minute and a half for each question, that really should be an average. And of course, like it kind of, like you're going to gain some extra time from certain questions or like save some time elsewhere. But what's my point? Yeah, what you gave was a really good indicator. Like those first 10 and 10 minutes is a really good way to hold yourself to saving yourself a lot of time for those harder questions at the end. For sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Really quick to transition it over to maybe some more practical takeaways of like, what do we mean by the right strategy to follow for certain LR questions? I don't know, like I was going to say we should do this maybe for parallel because we've already been talking about parallel, but we can do it for a different question type. Any like question types that you feel like you have a really good step-by-step process for that you would want to impart to the world?
Well, so I was just teaching parallel reasoning last night, and I think the beautiful thing about parallel reasoning is that the methods
so beautiful.
apply
That's what I always think. I'm literally always thinking how beautiful they are.
Yeah. Well, okay. Parallel reasoning. First, okay. I'll have this disclosure. Parallel reasoning is not beautiful. It is a much hated question type. Everybody hates it, and everybody tells me they hate it. And everybody, when they first start studying for the LSAT is saying to me, oh, I'm so bad at parallel reasoning. I gotta hone in on that. And I'm like, okay. First of all, no, let's not think about parallel reasoning for a while. But if you want to think about parallel reasoning, it employs the same tactics as most of the LSAT questions, which is you identify your conclusion, you identify the support for that conclusion or the premises, and then parallel reasoning has a third step that maybe others don't. In many cases, you would spot the gap. I think you have a class titled Spot the Gap Spotting the Gap, right? In many cases, you'd see what's missing from the argument. Parallel reasoning, you don't see what's missing. After you identify the argument parts, you abstract it, right? You strip away the names, the places, the subject matter, and you turn that argument into just raw argument structure. Like, for example, if, it could be about all sorts of things, but, a lot of them boil down to, well, you have a choice between this thing and that thing. And so you can't do that thing. So you pick this thing or whatever, right? You come up with the raw
and that's a really
argument
good way
structure.
To put that in like broad terms. Yes.
Yeah. And then you find an answer choice that has the same structure when you remove all the names, the places, and all that. Anyway, you were going to say, I'm rambling here.
No, I don't know. I was just saying that was good. That's also what I do. Yeah, for sure. I think one of the kind of hacks, because honestly, there's not too many ways to cut corners on this test. And that's part of what we're talking about in terms of this timing. Like, chances are you're trying to cut corners if you want to just do things a little bit faster, but you don't have the full understanding of the steps that you're supposed to follow yet. But I will say that there are some hints, tips, and tricks that you can follow for certain question types. And especially once you understand the overall question as a whole, it's going to be more reliable to employ these. But the thing that comes to mind for parallel reasoning is that I'm always honing on the conclusion first. I'm going to break down the stimulus. I'm going to figure out where's the premises, where's the conclusion, what's the relationship between these premises and conclusion. And then I'm going to go into those answer choices and do a quick little first pass on them and just try to identify the conclusion in each of them. Number one, I remind myself that order doesn't matter. I can't just skim down the answer choice and because the conclusion was at the end of the stimulus, then it's going to be at the end of each answer choice. No, I still got to do some digging. Still got to make sure that, you're figuring out what the actual main conclusion is. You might be wanting to look for those indicator words, then just double check the structure of support. Do I have reason to believe this? Does knowing this give me reason to believe anything else?
Yes.
But anyways, once you find those conclusions, then you want to kind of pit them against each other and just figure out, okay, well, if the conclusion up top had a should statement in it, they were making a recommendation. They were going as far as not only telling you what's true about the world, but they were telling you what to do about it. We needed our answer choice to do that same thing. It needs to have some sort of should or ought to statement. And so you can just do a quick little eliminate based on, well, this isn't a matching conclusion. It doesn't match the structure of the conclusion.
Yes. Yeah. Bailey, that's such a good point. And I think that's another topic. Maybe we're getting a little disorganized here, but should is the most. Good. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yeah. Should is the most overlooked word on the LSAT. If you have, and I think you just said it so beautifully, if your conclusion has the word should, that's a prescription. That is a doctor prescribing you something or whatever, right? That is somebody telling you what to do. They're not telling you about the world. I like how you put it, about how the world is versus what you should do.
Right. When that's some other conclusions. Yeah.
It's when you see should, you're looking for, if you want a parallel reasoning structure, then it better end in a should or start with a should or have should in the middle. Order doesn't matter.
Exactly. Some sort of should or ought to. What you got to do now? The statement. Yes, exactly.
100%.
Okay, good. Yeah. And honestly, now I'm do I connect this to other question types? I think it's worth it. Because the should, noticing that all over the LSAT, for example, if we're in a sufficient assumption or a pseudo-sufficient assumption question, and you notice that the conclusion has a should in it, but the premises, they don't have any sort of should. They don't even have normative statements. They don't tell you about what's good or bad, right or wrong about the world. You need an added premise, which is essentially what you're looking for in the right answer to a PSAR or essay question. You need an added premise that tells me what I should do about something. The right answer is going to have a should or a normative statement in it. So those are a couple of hacks where, as long as you're understanding the reasoning behind that as well, because that's just a different type of conclusion than a statement about the world, or I don't know, what other conclusions can there be? There's statements about the world, how likely something is to happen. Maybe it's kind of like a prediction. Sometimes the whole conclusion is a conditional reasoning statement. And if this thing happens, then this other thing happens.
Right.
But no matter what, we want to match those up. And you can also see a lot of parallels between question types. parallel
it's
method of
funny
reasoning.
you saying that right now. Like, I'm like, man, I wish I knew that when I took the LSAT. Like,
Right. Yes,
you're
I
just
didn't know
voicing it in such a,
it.
yeah, like I just, now I'm like, I understand that better. Which
Yes.
is like, if you have a bunch of statements, like you were saying with a PSA,
Mm,
if you have a bunch of statements that have no prescription, they don't tell you what to do, and then a conclusion that says you ought to do this or you should do that, then you're missing a link about the type of thing you should do. Like, if you should do
right.
this thing, what you're missing is what you should do in general, which would allow you to draw out what you should do in this case.
Right,
Maybe that's
right.
a
And
little
I think
abstract, but yeah,
no,
go
no, this
ahead.
is good because yeah, like I think that a lot of people just kind of fill in that gap in their brain already, and that's what makes these questions so hard. It's like you'll get
Yeah,
premises that say something like this disease is really harmful for children. And then the conclusion says like so doctors should prescribe medication to treat this disease. And it feels kind
right.
of pessimistic almost when you're first like or like you have to take almost a pessimistic approach when you're first learning the LSAT where it's like, well yeah, that sounds like a good argument, but hold on, do I actually know that doctors care about helping people that, or like that's
Right.
what they should be
Right.
doing, that they
Right.
should save people from this, bad disease? Like we don't know that unless we say that. And so just adding in
Yeah.
that extra step, like that's exactly what they're having you look for in those answer choices.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just never take for granted that they're making an airtight argument. Right.
Right. Because
I
most
think
of
I
these
use,
aren't.
yeah, they never are, except if they're like
Parallel method of reasoning is a good
parallel
example of
method
like
of reasoning. Right.
what are the
But
outcomes? Yeah,
yeah, I
outliers.
used an example the other day about like, oh, like organic food is healthier and maybe produced more sustainably. And so therefore you should buy it at the grocery store. And again, you got to think in your head, well, why should I? I had a student in live class, they beautifully put it like, why should I? Because what
Right.
are you leaving out? Maybe it's more expensive. Maybe I don't actually like it or whatever. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
available where
Maybe I
I
don't
live.
care. Yeah.
Maybe I
Yeah.
don't care. Right. Yeah. And that's such a blunt way to put it, but that's exactly the mindset you want to be in, is like, I do not care. This is not a reason I should do something. What you need to give me is that in abstract, the principle is that I always should do the thing that's healthier. And then I
Right.
can apply it to this case, in which case now I should buy the organic food because you gave me the reason that it's healthier. But without that
Right.
general philosophical premise of like, always do the thing that's healthier, then it's like, well, there's a lot of things that could get in the way of what I should do. Yeah. So anyway, yeah,
No,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
good. I totally
yeah,
agree. Yay. Okay, good. So yeah, just to connect it back to big picture, right now we're giving you guys hopefully some actionable takeaways of like how you can make your process a little bit tighter for certain question types. That's exactly what you want to be doing first things first to get faster at timing. Like the very
Mhm.
first prescription for any sort of timing error is, well, let's just make sure that your processes are really nice and what was I going to say? Like they're effective. They're getting you to the right answer in on-time practice,
Yes.
however long that takes you. And then you're going to do them enough times that it gets a lot smoother, a lot faster. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So once we're past that point, once we understand what we're doing, how do we get faster at timing? Like, do you have any drills that you recommend to people? Do you have any advice? Like, I don't know, what helped you?
Yeah, I'd say what helped me was a few things. So one would be the prioritization technique, which is not really a technique. At that point, you're just basically, you come across a question that you feel like you have to read a couple times and it's kind of
Right.
confusing you. I would
It's like,
skip it.
in one
I
ear,
would
out the
be
other. Yeah, that's your first
right,
sign.
right. If you find like you read something and you're like, huh? I would say do not hesitate to skip. I would actually skip a lot. This is just me personally. My LR section, I would skip like half the questions on the first pass, and then I would come back and do a second pass of all the skipped ones. That was just helpful for me because it helped me get through the entire section and get everything that I would nail and not miss anything that I would otherwise nail because I wasted time on something earlier. So skip
Yes.
the stuff that you're confused about, come back to it. That's one strategy. And then the second thing is, I think later in your studying journey, speed drills can be huge, like a
Right.
first 15 speed drill. I prescribe that to my students a lot. I tell them
Same.
they should do it. And then they ask me, why should I?
They're
Why
like,
do I
why should
care?
I?
Yeah.
Like, well, do you want to get good at this thing or not?
Right. Exactly. It's basically a drill where you do the first 10 or first 15 questions in an LR section. You do them fast, not rushing, but you do them where you're looking at it in a detailed way. But you try to then beat your time. You come back to it week after week, and you try to go faster. And you employ Bailey's advice, which is you go smooth. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So in some ways, you will beat your time by actually trying to go slower.
Right.
And so it's you want to try to be fast, but the way you're trying to be fast is not by rushing. It's by absorbing it the first time you read it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, exactly. Because I used to think that I was just so bad at timing or like whatever. But what I realized was I was reading those stimuli like 4 times and I still wouldn't get it after the 4th time. And then I'd be like, okay, you just got to move on now. And it's like, first of all, hold on. We got to develop some sort of skipping strategy that is allowing you to make the skip as early on into viewing that question as possible. Like the moment that you notice that you read it twice and then you're like, what? Keep moving. But then big picture, what you want to be doing is you want to be developing a strategy of how to read, how to understand things where you don't have to reread. Like you're not going to keep doing that, read it again and again, and it's still going in one ear and out the other. And so what I make myself do for that is, I mean, it feels kind of obvious or maybe kind of simple, but like we don't do this all the time. I make myself pause every couple words, translate into my own words. Only then am I allowed to move on. Like I literally will not let myself move on from a few words until I can get them precisely into my own words. Not like word by word translations, but just like chunk by chunk almost, so that you really are able to bring it all together. And then you're like, oh, cool, I'm so powerful. There's literally nothing that they can throw at me that I won't know how to make sense of.
Did you get to a point in your studying where you were able to look at an LR stimulus and almost immediately like kind of scan it and filter out the fluff and like find and spot the conclusion immediately? And you almost were reading it in reverse. Did you get to that point?
Yes, but it took so long, right? Yeah. And I feel like that was something where I was like, oh, I never really thought that I would be able to get here. And how do you get there? It's like, you really got to be meticulous in your translating and stuff. But yeah, like once you've seen enough of these LR stimuli, they're very cookie cutter. Like there's a conclusion somewhere in there, as long as it's not a MSS or must be true question. Those don't always have conclusions, or must be false, I guess also I should throw in there. Sure. And so like you get really good at finding that conclusion. You focus on what that support structure is. Like just do this enough times that it just doesn't feel as awkward and clunky after a while. But,
yeah. There's only so many ways to write an LR stimulus. Like imagine you're the writer of the LSAT and you're like, okay, I've got these like, 10 or so flaws. And I'm just going to keep creating new scenarios to like put them in there.
Like they're really not that scary. At first I was so like overwhelmed and nervous and scared about all of the different question types and all of the different stimuli they could throw at me. And then it's like, once you practice enough, they don't have that many tricks up their sleeve. Like they're pretty predictable. So that's also like kind of the point of that spotting the gap class, is like getting into the habit of pre-phrasing, being able to put into your own words what you're looking for and the right answer before you even go into those answer choices, because you're in the heads of the test makers. Like, you know exactly how they wrote this thing. You know exactly the missing sentence they left out to make it a bad argument. And you're going to go hunting for that in those answer choices.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I think a lot of maybe what this is boiling down to, maybe you'd agree, is like just getting into a mode where you have like an automatic process of like, I'm going in, I'm looking for this, and this, and I'm going to come up with a little bit of what I think the answer choice might need to look like. And you do that for every single question. And sometimes your brain leads you down the wrong path, but that'll only be a few times, hopefully. And it actually won't be a waste of time. It'll still be like a worthwhile process. So, and that'll just make you fast. That'll make you so fast. If you know what the answer choice is going to be before you even look at the answer choices for like 90% of the questions, you're going to be pretty fast at the test.
Right.
And
I think people, myself included, get scared of that, because it's like, well, doesn't that sound like you're adding a step into my process? Like, how do I add an extra step into my process and I still go faster? I know, I get it. It feels counterintuitive, but just trust. Like, that really does help you go lightning fast down those answer choices, because I think a lot of people don't realize that they're usually wasting most of their time just deliberating between answer choices or jumping back and forth between answer choices. Like, trying to convince themselves that one is right, and then you start looking at another one and it's like, shoot, I can convince myself that all of these are right. Like, what do I do now? And so having your head on straight going into it, knowing exactly what you're looking for. And by the way, like not getting too attached to any specific words or how you want it to be phrased. get that pre-phrase just to engage, and then keep an open mind going down those answer choices. Make sure that you have a couple tests. That's what I usually like to do to like double check my answer choices. Those should change for each question type. Like necessary assumption, I'm always like, okay, it must be true. Negate and destroy. Sufficient assumption. If I were to reread my premises, reread this answer choice, read my conclusion. My conclusion is now guaranteed, having added this in. I don't know, there's plenty that we could give, but those are examples
100%.
also of different strategies that you want to add into your process. It's so worth adding in some steps, getting really good at them, and then never skipping those steps, because that's how you get faster and better, and you're going to crush the test.
Yeah. Eventually. It all sounds daunting, but it really does pay off to just nail the process. And like, you know, it might feel like you're going slower. It might feel like you're spending extra weeks studying stuff that isn't directly translating.
Yes, and that part can feel really frustrating.
Off. Yeah.
But yes, exactly. Yeah. We've all been there. It'll pay off. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Like, learn your formal logic. Don't skip that, you know? It might.
Oh my God, I skipped like, that.
Why? Right. Yeah. It's like, why am I memorizing all these only if and you know, but it's like, well, it'll, you know, you skip it now, it's going to hurt you later. So, and you're saying you skipped it initially, is that?
Yeah, I didn't have like any sort of process going to this test. I literally just did it all learning by doing. Like, I didn't even want to sign up for any sort of platform. I literally was just going through and like taking random practice tests. And like reverse engineering my way back to an answer. But like, sometimes I have the right answer for the right reasons. I'm sure other times I was just getting lucky, and like, I just couldn't articulate my process. I had no idea any of those sufficient necessary indicators. I would always like see them online somewhere, and then I'd be like, oh, this is BS. Like, it's just a words test. And it is. It's a reading test above all else, but you need to understand the concepts that they're using. And like sufficiency, necessity, very different. I treated those as one and the same somehow. I don't even understand how, for the longest time when I was studying. And I was seeing incremental improvement at best. And when I would see breakthroughs in my score, I really would feel like it was a fluke. Like, I'd be like, oh, I just got lucky that time. And then I would see a lot of variation because I wouldn't know which strategies took me to the right answers. So,
yeah, it sounds like where you were is that you were kind of just being intuitive about the test, which is a great, like, raw skill to have. And then sometimes the test would match your intuition, and sometimes it wouldn't.
Exactly. And then I would get I would feel really good when it did, and I'd feel really bad when it didn't.
Right. And I think that's all what the LSAT is kind of about, is like, you know, we all think logically already inherently, right?
We have some sort of logic and reason.
We have some sort of logic, but the test is trying to fool you with things that sound pretty but are not logical. And the real test is to see that for what it is, and some of the times your intuition will kick in. When you need a process is when your intuition doesn't kick in, for example, right? And I think that's what we're really getting at.
Totally agree. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I thought there was gonna be a debate, like we're just in agreement.
No debate. We're just in agreement. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know, anything else that we want to talk about with timing? I can't think of much else. We've given those timing drills. By the way, you guys can use that similar. We were talking about like first 10, first 15 for LR, and then you're saving yourself that extra 20-ish minutes for the last 11. Separating those to like half and half drills, like half of the section, half the other section. Yeah. That's what I recommend doing. And like what we were talking about earlier, where you're just tapering it down a little bit each time. Like, you just kind of try to beat your past time. Exactly. T-minus 1 or 2 minutes each time, carry those same strategies over. I do the exact same thing for RC. First 2 passages, last 2 passages, you're going through, and you are just trying to make sure that you're spending a little bit less time overall in the first 2 passages. I tell myself to get to about 15 minutes for the first 2 total. Then I'm saving myself 20 whole minutes for the last 2. If those last 2 weren't actually as hard as the first 2, cool. I got a few minutes at the end to go back and fill in there. So overall drills, indicators, like timing indicators of when to move on to the other half of the section can be helpful. But anything else practical?
So I think, I have 2 things. So one, on the RC, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that sparked something in my brain, which was similar advice of like, if you spend time on the passage, you can fly through the questions.
Yes.
And I used to do this stupid thing where I would just skim the passage or not even read it and go to the questions first and then try to find the answer in the passage later. Because I thought I didn't have time to like...
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. But you think, I don't have time, so let me start with the question and then go find it in the passage. Which it maybe seems kind of like a good strategy, but no, read
Not
the
for this
passage
test.
first,
It's
do
too
your
hard.
low res
Yeah.
summaries. Yeah. Like, and then the questions should be way faster. Like the time
Mhm.
should be spent up front. And I think that's a theme throughout this entire podcast episode is like, spend the time up front. It'll pay off in
Mhm.
speed later. If you act
Yes.
like you're going fast or try to rush, that's where you really shoot yourself in the foot. I wanted to ask, should we say a word about like accommodations? Maybe that
Yeah,
is
very good point.
relevant
Exactly.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think that people ask a lot about like, so how do I change my approach for accommodations? And I mean, part of it is just checking in on yourself, like whatever the reason that you have those accommodations are. If you have some sort of strategy that you need to add into your process to help your brain, like just kind of even out the playing field for this test, because that's the point of accommodations, evening out the playing field for everybody.
Yes.
Awesome. It might be something like more person specific. But in general, I still give people similar like halfway moving on points, but you just, if you have time and a half, you multiply the 15 minutes for the first 15 times time and a half. So that's like 23 minutes for the first 15 LR, 23 minutes for the first 2 RC. Then you got 30 whole minutes for the last 10 or 11 LR and 30 whole minutes for the last 2 RC. And same for double time. I just multiply it by 2.
Yes.
What do you give different advice, or what do you?
No. I don't have that much advice up my sleeve. So,
Got you.
So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I guess the only advice I give is like for folks who, I think it's always worthwhile to try to apply for accommodations. Like if you have any sort of thing that inhibits your learning or ability to perform for multiple hours at a time, then certainly if you can, try to talk to your physician about what your symptoms are, what you feel when you study. See if they can sign off on your little note, and submit that to LSAC. And I think that they can sometimes be quite generous in granting you something if you need it.
Right.
And and I think that's totally reasonable because when you're a lawyer one day, your employer will also accommodate you. That's like, by law, they have to do
exactly.
that.
American Disabilities Act. People get really scared about like also if you get accommodations, are the schools that you apply to going to see that? No. Like legally, they literally cannot see that you had accommodations. It used to be a thing in the past. They used to put a little asterisk on any sort of people's who had accommodation scores, but no, not anymore. They got sued. Can't be doing that. So
that would be discrimination of some sort.
That would be discrimination. Exactly.
Which is what lawyers are in some sense trying to actively combat. They're trying to ensure
I would hope
that people have rights and whatnot, right? So that's you're entering into this career. So in some sense, know your rights, know what what you have access to.
Right.
That's a great start on a legal journey. Is applying for accommodations.
Exactly. Honestly, if you need them. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And by the way, for anybody who's thinking about it, you do have to apply for those accommodations and like get the accommodations before the registration deadline for your exam. So I would recommend if you're looking into the accommodations, applying before that, like sign up for the exam and then apply before that deadline passes so that just in case you have to do any sort of appeals process, you're able to get it all figured out by that deadline.
Yeah. And if you end up moving your test date, the accommodations roll over.
Yes,
so
they always stay.
Them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you take the test multiple times, you don't have to apply for them again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, something to look into if all of our advice fails because you have, ADHD or something that inhibits your ability to focus, etc. That's another, I guess, timing tip. I put that in air quotes. that you might need accommodations.
It's not really a tip, but like exactly.
Right.
There's a resource that's there for you guys. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you guys ever want ADHD advice, I have plenty. We could do a whole podcast episode about that. Actually, maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe. I don't have ADHD,
but do you have it? You don't seem like you have it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's undiagnosed, but so my brother has ADHD, but he if you met him, you would certainly agree that he does. But anyway, I don't. But I'm sure a lot of people have a lot to learn from you, Bailey, on that topic. Because you seem
like Bailey, I can tell that you have it.
No. I just mean that you seem like you've got it figured out.
It was definitely a big learning curve, but exactly. I feel very good about how to approach this test now, and I can always give some advice on that. So,
did you learn you had it when studying for the LSAT, or did you always know? That's a good
question. That happens a lot. Yeah, no, I came to terms with it when I was studying for the LSAT. I for me, it was like literally all my teachers growing up would ask me if I had ADHD, like all of them.
Okay.
And I would always be really close to my teachers. Like I loved school, and they'd be like, okay, what's going on with your brain, girl? Like, why are you writing all your papers at 4 a.m.? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't focus otherwise. They're like, you might want to go get tested. I'm like, what am I going to do with that information? Like, just know that I have it. But then it was actually super helpful to go through that process, because then you just get treatment, you get help. Like, even just understanding what that condition does to your brain more so, and like how it can also be kind of a fun little, I don't know, like a blessing and a curse type of vibe. Like you could actually use it to your advantage and just be more aware of why you think the way that you do. Super helpful. So yeah, I know I actually have a lot of students that come into live class and they're like, wait, I might have ADHD, or like, oh, I just found out that I like got diagnosed. And I'm like, oh, cool. Same. Like me too. Yeah. Definitely go reach out. Like you do something, because that was instrumental in me figuring out how to just do this test better, was like learning who I am as a learner and how to approach it better from my own little neurodivergencies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a great, I love the, like your perspective on it, because if you have any sort of neurodivergency, there's no reason to compound the difficulty by then having unfair, timing structure. So in some sense, you need to level, like you said, you put this so well, you need to level the playing field, because you're coming in with a neurodivergency. And so you need to not like make it harder for you than the average person. You need to be as hard as the average person, ideally.
Exactly.
And that's what,
and you don't need to feel bad about that. Yes. I think there's so much guilt and like, oh, I don't know, like imposter syndrome almost when you are thinking about applying for those. And it's like, nope, no reason. That's exactly why these accommodations are here. Like it's all good. Definitely recommend.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. What else were we going to talk about? I guess just like a little bit of comment on, okay, so who's listening to this podcast or watching it right now and is trying to avoid actually studying? Because I definitely used to be doing that. Did you do that?
Yes, I did that all the time. So there was part of me that was like, I didn't want to be studying actively, but I wanted constant like exposure to the LSAT. And I was kind of like obsessed with law school admission. So I was just always scrolling on Reddit and I was listening to podcasts, and I just wanted that constant exposure. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience who do the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I don't know. We just kind of wanted to talk about that. Like that is so normal. That is exactly what I think so many people are doing. It's not going to be the most helpful thing in the world. Like, but this is a good supplement. But if this is your only studying, if all that you're doing is scrolling on Reddit and all that you're doing is like just listening to stuff, but you're not putting into practice, like you're not doing learning by doing, I mean, you're going to learn the hard way, or you could just take it from us. It's not, that's not everything that you need to be improving on this test. And so I don't know, making sure that you got takeaways from each of these little snippets that you listen to, or like if you're going to spend your time, dare I say, doom scrolling on Reddit, make sure that you're actually getting something out of it. Like make sure that you have some action plans.
I still do that. I still doom scroll on law school admissions
or on
and
law school
admissions.
Okay.
On both. I do it on both. And I've already taken the LSAT and I've already gotten into law school, and yet I still doom scroll. I don't know when that ends. I think it can be healthy, as hard as it is. I think it can be healthy to take breaks from the LSAT.
Yes.
And so I think a healthy approach is to set aside some time for very focused studying. That could mean you're doing one question. That could mean you're doing 10. It could mean you're doing an entire practice test. But you set aside the time for studying and only studying. And in the time that you're not studying, I would not think about the LSAT at all. And that doesn't mean don't listen to our podcast, because we have some great tips for studying.
Right. Please keep listening to our podcast.
Yeah. but I wouldn't, for example, go to the library, plop down all your stuff, say you're going to be studying, and then mix in your studying with like, I'm half studying, half listening to podcasts. I think that's a great way to tire your brain and convince yourself that you sat there all day. So, I should be, reaping the benefits of having sat in the library for 8 hours.
Right.
But, your studying might have been a few minutes of that 8 hours. And so I guess my point is not to unsubscribe from 7. They might have to cut this out too.
No, this is good. Keep going.
but my point is be focused. My camera is following me. Be focused about what is study time, and then when you're not in study time, or learning time. And, the podcast can count as learning time, getting some tips. Do other things, maintain your relationships, maintain your health, eat your meals, etc. Right? Like, it's not a good idea to bombard yourself 24/7 with LSAT content, because I think that will only stress you out. That was the main thing I wanted to say, is that take a little break, watch things you like. And if you like watching LSAT material, then watch it, sure, on your free time. But don't
but
feel
maybe not
pressured.
just like every single minute. Yeah.
yeah. Don't feel pressured to like replace all of your leisure time with like LSAT material.
Right.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you're saying
I don't know if
this.
anybody out there does that, but I think I had a tendency to.
Me too. I just kept falling victim to this mindset where I was like, well, shoot, like I'm in my LSAT study phase, so I have to be doing like every minute has to be productive. And so like when I'd be scrolling on TikTok, I would like Google LSAT, like I Google on TikTok, I would search LSAT, and like it's fine and all, but like people's brains don't work like that. Like you're going to experience diminishing returns after a point. That is going in one ear and out the other, very similar to those LR stimuli are if you're not paying attention. So definitely worth it. And also I think you're bringing up kind of a good point, or well, I think you're kind of bringing up this point. I don't know if it's the point you're bringing up, but it's a good point where it's good.
It's kind of a good point. It's a medium point. Yeah.
Whatever.
Let's make it better. Yeah. Please.
No, it's a good point if you're bringing this up about varying the time that you're spending studying. Like you could be spending your time doing a lot of different things. Like maybe some of your studying is going through that syllabus on 7Sage. Some of your studying is doing full drills or full sections or full PTs. Some of your studying is just taking up time, wrong answer journaling, or just being, just wrong answer journaling or blind reviewing.
Yes.
And then some of it might be like live classes or listening to podcasts or doing other things, which I don't know. There's just so many different options, basically.
Yeah. I wasn't bringing up that point, but that's a great point. I agree that it's a great point. I did not make that point. You made that point.
Amazing.
Yeah. And, I would do things like, and again, it can be this simple. Like some days I would not have time to study, and I would be on the bus and I would have the 7Sage mobile app on my phone, and I would do one LR question, literally one, a drill set of one, where I found the conclusion, I found the premises, I thought about the relationship, I pre-phrased, right? And I answered it as meticulously, rigorously as possible. And then I maybe did a little blind review. And that whole process, like on a bus ride, can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes for one question. And doing something like that, I think just keeping your brain active around, I'm reinforcing this process, can be very powerful. And that can be way more powerful, just that one question, than, sitting for 8 hours in a library doom scrolling and stressing out about you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a very good point in your methods.
Yes.
Yeah. And but every time you do it right. Even if it means you do it less. Right? If that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Totally agree. Yay. Yeah. Awesome. All right. I'm like,
all right.
Yeah, I think we should wrap it up now because I was about to start another point, but I have to go to class in 2 minutes. So pause here, they can edit this, but let me transition to like an end. All right. Thank you guys for coming along on this journey with us today. We talked about timing, how to make sure that, first of all, you're getting past the point of understanding whether or not you have a timing issue or an understanding issue, like an accuracy issue. Then once you get your accuracy up, how to get down to those good timing indicators. And then we also talked about what to be doing with that. I don't know, what should we call that kind of studying? Like when you're listening to podcasts or like just background studying almost, like background music?
Passive, yeah.
Passive versus active studying. Exactly. So just making sure that you have some room in your schedule for all of this. And I liked your point also of just like giving yourself a break whenever you need one.
Yeah. Thanks. I liked your points as well.
Thank you. All good points. All good points made.
All good points. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for coming. Please comment below on this, on this YouTube episode if you want to ask us any questions. We are still going to be choosing some of those questions, and whichever ones get chosen, you get a month of 7Sage plus live, apparently. And What else? If you want to email us, podcast@7sage.com. You can also email us questions there. We will look forward to answering your guys' questions in future episodes. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.